Experience should teach us to be most on our guard to protect liberty when the government's purposes are beneficent. Men born to freedom are naturally alert to repel invasion of their liberty by evil-minded rulers. The greatest dangers to liberty lurk in insidious encroachment by men of zeal, well-meaning but without understanding. Justice Brandeis. Consumer protection government programs and agencies have been growing in number and have been spending billions of dollars on your behalf every year for decades. But is the consumer better protected as a result? Actually, it's exactly the opposite. Not only our money is being taken away, but we are left worse protected. These consumer protection agencies usually have two common characteristics. First, they are very critical of the past government measures. They claim that most past attempts have been counterproductive, but when you ask them for a solution, they just offer more of the same. But, of course, this time it will be them who will enforce the new regulations and everything will be Gucci. In fact, a good way to describe a modern-day Democrat is as someone who thinks that all past laws are bad and that all future laws will be good. Second, shared characteristic is that these consumer protection agencies are anti-business. They claim that the greedy businessmen will push any product down your throat just to make a profit. Let's note few governmental regulations that are clearly anti-consumer, but we haven't heard a word from our consumer protectors. There are regulations and limits placed on importation of medicine, electronics, toys, health and beauty products, machinery, and agriculture products, to name a few. This, of course, makes the quality and variety of all mentioned products available to the consumer less and makes the domestic prices for them high. Who pays for it? You and me. There are also bans by FDA on many medical products that are available in other parts of the world. All you need to do is search for that endless list. FDA claims that some of them can cause cancer, increase the risk of stroke, cause a kidney failure, and etc. You and I might not be qualified to make that distinction, but from a perspective of a believer in freedom, the right way is to let people know about the risks and let them make their own choices and decisions. The consumer in these cases is protected against himself. What pro-consumer means to them is that they are forcing you to do what you would do on your own free will if you were as smart as they were. Nobody would deny that cigarettes are a greater cause of cancer than almost any medicine you can name. And it is proper to protect the consumer from the medicine with the same logic we should protect the consumer from cigarettes, or alcohol for that matter. In fact, if you could prevent people from drinking, you could prevent more deaths from accidents than with all the safety equipment built and mandated on cars and machines. It is probably obvious that I'm not in favor of prohibition of alcohol, cigarettes, or any other drug or medicine, so I am in a consistent position. Feel free to watch the drug legalization video on my channel to find out the reasons why. But our consumer advocates are in a very inconsistent position. They would be more than happy to prohibit alcohol and cigarettes if they could, but they are only pro-consumer when they can get away with it. But again, on what grounds can we be so confident that these regulations are counterproductive? First, we have years of bad and counterproductive experience in many areas and industries. But second, we can do some very simple analysis. If you are a bureaucrat working in FDA and you are in a position of approving a new drug, there are two kinds of mistakes you could make. First is to approve a drug that has harmful side effects, and second is to make the mistake of not approving a drug that has beneficial effects. If you approve a drug with harmful side effects, you will become a public enemy number one. Your name will be on the news and your reputation will cease to exist. But if you fail to approve a drug which might save lives, people who will object to that will mostly be dead. Suppose you fail to approve a drug that could just improve the quality of life, like aspirin. Nobody would know about the improvement that was denied to them. Not many people would complain about it. People who developed the drug or some doctors will complain, but you can dismiss them. They are the special greedy interest. So, you would agree that as a bureaucrat, you would do everything you can to make sure not to approve a bad drug, even if it means failing to approve a good drug. Any one of us would do the same. As a result, you will have fewer good drugs approved to prevent a couple of bad ones. You will raise the costs of medical research. You will make it more expensive to meet FDA standards, since not only they test for safety but also efficacy. And you will make USA companies move their research abroad to avoid all these regulations. Who benefits from all this if the consumer is hurt? Well, of course, the regulators. It does not matter whether they have good or evil intentions. They achieve their goals and therefore benefit. Some players in the industry can also benefit. While it is more expensive to get a new drug approved, it is more expensive for everyone. So, a large company that has the money and can fund the new drug is protected from competition from smaller research firms. But in the long run, the industry will be hurt since it will cease to be a private industry, which will drop the level of service or product to be as good as other well-known government-provided services. People sometimes don't understand the difference between private enterprise and government enterprise. What is the difference if you have a large corporation like Apple or a government corporation that would produce and sell cell phones? Well, the difference is huge. There is no way in which Apple could get $1 from you unless you voluntarily agree to give it to them. Apple can't send a policeman to pick your pocket, but the government can. As a result, Apple will serve your interest in ways government agencies don't have to. And if Apple doesn't, you can always switch to Android, Nokia, or another phone. And that's what prevents Apple from exploiting you. Now, how can the consumer be protected? As in the example with Apple, the most effective way is free competition and free market. The way to protect against monopoly is to have alternative sources of supply. Governmental consumer protection programs hurt the consumer because they prevent new businesses from entering the market. And so they keep down the number of potential competitors at home or internationally. We must understand that competition doesn't protect the consumer because businessmen are more generous than bureaucrats, but because it is in their self-interest. And we may again quote Adam Smith from 250 years ago. It is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own self-interest. We address ourselves not to their humanity, but to their self-love, and never talk to them about their own necessities, but of their advantages. Nobody but a beggar chooses to depend chiefly upon the benevolence of his fellow citizens. Let's quickly reject a few more ungrounded claims that are made by our consumer advocates. The claim that consumer can't judge the quality of complex products and therefore needs the government to step in. Well, whether we buy clothes, furniture, or medicine, we don't know everything about that product, but we rely on the department store that sells it. In fact, that's the only reason department store exists and makes money. It's because it can assure the consumer of the quality of the product it sells. The claim that, who if not FDA will prevent bad foods and drugs? Well, if a company produces a harmful product, it is going to go bankrupt or lose its reputation. It is not a good strategy if you intend doing business for a long term. But what about the claim that FDA can judge the quality of the products? It might interest you to know that many of the studies that FDA has relied on have been disproved by new research. Except when a private company fails at that, it goes bankrupt, but when FDA fails, it expands. What about the claim that consumers might be misled by false advertising? To begin with, it doesn't pay the business to create false advertising because businesses make money from returning customers and not from one-time sales. Sure, once in a while you will get a charlatan who will sell his phony product, but he won't be around for too long. As Abraham Lincoln famously said, "You can fool some of the people all the time, you can fool all of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time." But more than that, ultimately, the customer chooses the product by its quality and not by advertisement. In any event, you can't be comparing the real world with an ideal alternative. You must compare real with real. And there is no more misleading advertisement than government advertising. As a conclusion, these so-called consumer protectors might have the best intentions in mind, might want to make the world a better place with their regulations, or might be greedy bureaucrats who want to gain political power. It doesn't matter in the slightest. As consumers, we should look at them as people who are picking our pockets rather than people who are protecting us from the big, bad wolf. I hope you are having a nice day. Feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos. And remember, since laughter is the best medicine, one day FDA might start regulating it too.